Today, I'm joined by David Kenworthy, an independent researcher in ancient metrology whose work focuses on the extraordinary precision and long-term coherence of ancient systems of measure. David comes from an auditing background, and after retiring, he turned his attention to ancient monuments, in particular the Great Pyramid of Giza, and asked a deceptively simple question: what happens when we look carefully at the numbers and the measurements and the ratios themselves, rather than the assumptions we've inherited? So in this conversation, we're going to focus on how the measured dimensions of the Great Pyramid have been understood over time, from the early work of Jomard during Napoleon's expedition, through to Flinders Petrie's landmark surveys, and into later interpretations by researchers such as John Michell and Robin Heath and John Neal. And we'll be looking at why different measurements exist and what they reveal about geodetic thinking, arcseconds, earth measurement, and why the choice of unit might be secondary to the numerical structure underlying the monument. So this discussion touches on questions of Earth circumference, lunar and solar numbers, base systems, and the possibility that the Great Pyramid was conceived not just as a building, but as part of a much larger meteorological and cosmological framework. So today is about measurement, how it was done, how it's been misunderstood, and what it may still have to teach us. So good morning, David.
Good morning, Melissa. Thank you for inviting me on again.
Thank you so much. We had a great discussion the last time, so this time we're going to focus a little bit more on the Great Pyramid. But before we do, we had a really interesting comment from somebody on the last video, Charles. He's French, so Charlemagne, Charles Magna, and he made some really interesting observations.
Yeah, well, I've known Charles for quite a long time. He made a lot of comments on my YouTube videos that I put out.
Yeah.
When we had COVID, I was it affected me quite badly, and I was a bit housebound for a while. And to pass the time, I started putting videos on YouTube about astrology.
They were great. I remember.
I ended up doing about 95 videos, and I know I was watching one the other day, and I can't really talk very well because I was finding it difficult to breathe.
Poor thing.
But I'm glad I did those videos because they're a good reference, and that's why I did them, because I had so many ideas. I wanted to put them down.
Yeah, please watch them. Anybody watching this, they're great. They're really informative.
Yeah, but Charles has come up with this amazing, what we were talking about. All these lines are there to be found. And this particular line is from Stonehenge to the Greenwich Observatory.
Mm-hmm.
And Charles assures me that that site is thousands of years old. It's a very ancient that's been built on. And I know that you were interested in it because of what it stands for. So to find a line from Stonehenge to the Greenwich Observatory is amazing.
Yeah.
Charles is very familiar with the canon of ancient measure, but he's a tremendous metrologist. And I'm very excited by the line, and we're going to write a paper together about it.
That's great. So yeah, so he found this connection, and it's about circles.
Yeah, it's about I found a unit that I call the Egyptian megalithic yard. And this unit is produced by very specific dimensions. And the radius that he's found, the line that he's found, is the same dimension as this megalithic yard. So we'll be writing about it in the paper if
Fantastic.
And maybe we can get to discuss it as well.
This is what's so interesting. It's making these connections across the landscape. And yes, obviously, Greenwich Observatory is a relatively modern structure, but that's not to say that it wasn't situated there because it was an important site in the first place. And I'm sure much of London was, like St. Paul's Cathedral and the various other cathedrals and abbeys.
Yeah, definitely. I've not been to the observatory. So
I've never been. I just go there sometimes on Google Earth.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I've never actually been. But I've heard it's a great day out, and I would like to go one day. So another thing you were talking about recently was particular interpretation of the Egyptian royal cubit.
Yeah, well, I've seen a paper that's just been published on academia by Gary Osborne,
Yeah.
well known in metrological circles. He's done some great work, very impressive work, and he did a paper about the Egyptian chariot wheel, and the chariot wheel diameter is a meter.
Yeah.
And when it's a meter, if you multiply by pi approximate, like 22/7, you get 6 royal cubits in the circumference. Excuse me. And I've read quite a lot of Gary's work, and then he's put this paper out using pi as 3.1416. It produces a meter of 52.36 centimeters. And the big discussion is about, is this a royal cubit? And it is. We're fairly sure that it is. But is it sort of the royal cubit? Because there's a lot of interpretations about what a royal cubit is and what a royal cubit isn't. So in terms of the paper, it's the best piece of analysis work that I've seen in determining the build-up to what a royal cubit is. So if anybody's interested in that, it'd be worth going on academia and having a look at Gary's paper.
Yeah, I'll find the link and I'll put it underneath.
And there's a really interesting discussion going on about it at the moment. And Gary is very measured in his responses. And he's more interested in the whole aspect of this than being the one to discover the royal cubit, because there's, I think, a few metrologists who've gone for 52.36, and at one time I went for it, and it's in Berriman's book as well. But when I really started to study Berriman, I realised it was a lot more complicated. And the other misnomer about the royal cubit is it's got 28 digits in it, but it can't have, because it's 20 Riemann times root 2. And 20 Riemann, 20 times root 2 is 28.28, blah, 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 with, 20 root 2. So if it's 20 root 2, it can't, that's the number of digits it's got in it. It can't have 28 in it. It's got to have more. And Berriman explains this in his book. So we're always looking with a royal cubit as 28 and a bit digits. But Charles Magner explained to me what the Nippur cubit is. And the Nippur cubit has got 28 digits in it. So the Nippur cubit multiplied by a bit more gives a royal. And it's working out what that bit more is. That's the enjoyable part when you look into it. And it's the one that causes all the headaches and all the ripping up the paper and chucking it in the bin, and you know the process. And
yeah, well, I mean, some qubits have 27, 28, maybe even 32 digits, but not necessarily all of the same size. That's another possibility, that that several of the digits, for example, of the last palm, because it's usually 4 palms, it may be slightly different in size. So that's another possibility. And definitely when you look at the surviving qubit rods, they're not easy to read. They're complicated, and there's definitely room for various interpretations.
Yeah, the qubit rods are very complicated because the divisions aren't equal.
That's it.
I mean, there might be a load of equal divisions and then some different size divisions. So what were they doing, But
yeah. I mean, and the 0. Sorry.
After you.
I was going to say the 0.5236 meter qubit is kind of interesting in that you're looking at pi, and then this, you mentioned root 2, so you have another supposedly irrational, an irrational number, but maybe used in an applied sense. So you have, and then also possible connection to phi squared with that particular 5236 meter. So,
Yeah.
but in relation to a meter, which is interesting. So, or 20 centimeters times 5 squared.
Yeah. I think the Royal Cubit, with it being a square of side 20, the diagonal of that square, and we say that root 2 is irrational, but when you look at the diagonal of the square, that is root 2. Mm-hmm. Root 2. So they were measuring easily these cubits using squares and using the diagonal as a cubit. But when you measure it in inches, it produces this difficult problem of if you've got a 20-inch square, then the cubit will be 28.28 blah, blah, blah inches. And it's that blah, blah, blah bit that's the complicated bit.
Yeah.
You're getting down to very, very small margins. So when we're looking at 52.36, it is a royal. Definitely a royal, and Berriman gives it as a royal in his book. He does say that 52.36 centimeters. So we can't ignore it, and if we assume that that is a royal cubit, when you read Gary's paper, it's just fabulous.
Yeah,
really
that's great. Yeah. Well, actually, talking of the meter, Jomard measured the Great Pyramid, but obviously he didn't use midges to begin with. But he may have found something that convinced him that the meter was there, at least in the background. So we were talking about Jomard last time. So he went out with Napoleon's expedition to Egypt.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got this. I went on AI to get this information.
Right. Sometimes
AI knows everything. Maybe.
Maybe.
Right. The measure of the Giza Great Pyramid over time. It says, and I asked the question, did Jomard measure the base of the Giza Pyramid in meters?
Mm-hmm.
It's a great story, though, isn't it? Because Bonaparte is included in this story. How fantastic is that? You know, I love things like, I love that kind of association.
Yeah. And why did he go to Egypt with a bunch of scientists?
Everybody wants to know this, and they had to dig the base of the pyramid away. Isn't it just brilliant?
Yeah.
So I'll read what AI is telling us.
Go on.
Because it is exactly what I said to you in my talk. And after the talk, I thought, well, I wonder if that's actually right, that he did figure out the arcseconds in the base. And it says, Jomard did not measure the Giza base in meters. The metric system did not exist at the time of his expedition. As the surveyor who accompanied Napoleon's expedition to Egypt in the late 1790s, he would have used contemporary French units of his era. Now, I remember that Bonaparte is being quoted as, I watched the film Bonaparte fairly recently, or whatever it was called. It was quite a good film. And he was quoted as saying, I don't want you to tell me in these modern units, I want you to tell me in feet and inches. And it says, Jomard's work is notable for a theory he proposed linking the pyramid's dimensions to geodetic measures. He suggested that the length of one side of the Great Pyramid was 1 divided by 480 of 1 degree of latitude, a relationship that is independent of any specific unit of measurement, like meters or inches. And that's great, because that's something that I've been saying. If you look at the designs in digits, they're fixed. The Earth's circumference is 2160, loads of zeros. 2160, which is 6 times 6 times 6 times loads of zeros. That's the ancient circumference of the Earth. And it can only vary when you change the length of the digit. So we don't know what the length of the digit is. It's that number of digits always, but we don't know what the length of the digit is. And that's the trick, to find out the digit that fits. So it's the same with this, what Jomard is saying. And he goes on to say, 1 divided by 480 is of 1 degree is 7.5 arcseconds, making the base of the Giza pyramid 30 arcseconds. So this pioneering view was so far ahead of its time, it's been overlooked. Now, I'm sorry, I wrote that myself.
That's the best part.
But that's I'm saying one divided by 480 of 1 degree is 7.5 arcseconds, and that's one side of the pyramid. So what I've been saying for a long time is that this measure, it doesn't matter what you work out for your base of your pyramid, it's always going to be 30 arcseconds. Mm-hmm. So if the bigger the pyramid gets, the bigger the arcsecond gets. So you with me? The taller the pyramid, the base round the pyramid, the arcsecond gets bigger, and that's how this system works. It's a system.
Can you explain that a bit more? Because an arcsecond is a particular unit of measure in terms of the size of the Earth. So how can it vary?
Well, in Google Earth, the arcsecond is a fixed measure.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you about that. It's 1217.4 inches in Google Earth. Mm-hmm. So we know the Earth is an oblate spheroid. Mm. So it's got different arcseconds depending on where you're measuring and what part of where you put in your circumference. So if you put it around the pole, the arcsecond's going to be less, isn't it?
Mm, yeah.
And that's what Neil and Michell worked out. They worked out that the median is 24883.2
miles.
Yeah, but if the Giza pyramid, let's say the base of the pyramid is 36300 inches, that's using a cubit of 20.625. That's going to give a different arcsecond than if it's a cubit that Neil and Michell are using, which is slightly smaller than that. Mm-hmm. So the lower up the pyramid you go, the shorter the arcsecond gets. So this scale that Giza is set out against, it's measuring the Earth in a certain part of the pyramid. So the rest of the design is measuring other things, like it might be measuring universal constants, or it might be measuring astronomical cycles. Mm. I think that the primary purpose of the Giza design is to measure astronomical cycles rather than being geodetic. And you find the geodetic cuts off at 24900. And yeah, and then the
equatorial.
Yeah, and then the astronomical cycles tend to be above that. So when you get up to the base 100 tip of the pyramid, you're looking at predicting eclipses. That's like the fundamental analysis of the design of the pyramid. And the Mayan pyramids have heights of 1466 units, meters, in fact, I think. That some researchers have found. So the height of the pyramid is an eclipse unit or 100 eclipse units, and that's very. And the Giza pyramid is that. We can prove that not using my numbers, using Neil and Michelle's numbers, and using different versions of pi. So there's so much to understand about this.
There's so much. So we just went briefly back to meters, because you said the height of the Great Pyramid is 146.6-ish meters. So then you can interpret that in whatever way. So you're suggesting 146.666.
Well, sorry.
Go on.
Well, thank you, Melissa. Petrie says the height of the pyramid is 5776 inches, doesn't he?
Yeah, plus or minus 7 inches each way.
Yeah, which is a big range, isn't it? Plus
it is a bit, yeah. So it gives a little bit of scope. But to be fair, he's done that on the basis of the measurement of an angle at the base. He didn't actually he had to calculate it based on mean side.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that if you want to use a meter of 39.375 that we've talked about, and if you want to have 146.66666 recurring exactly in the Giza height, it's got to be 5775 inches.
Which is very close. It's an inch below what he's suggesting. So, an inch is not bad. How much is an inch?
But if you work it out in the metric, it's actually, I think it's 14666 centimeters, something like that.
You mean converting the 5775 inches? Yeah.
So if you're analysing the pyramid in the metric, it is actually the eclipse unit that you're using. You don't get it. What it is the Mayan Zapal. When you talked about the Zapal, the Mayan Zapal is 57.75 inches long, and that's 146.666 centimeters.
Yeah.
I've done a video about that, one of my videos that I did. It's very important understanding the design of the pyramid, this number. And the pyramid is designed against root 2 as well. But root 2 was used by the Egyptians as 99/70, according to Algernon Berriman. And that was also used as 140/99. So now, if you divide 14.66666, if you divide that by 28, the famous 28 number, and multiply it by 27, the famous 27 number, you do get 10 root 2 as 99/70. Exactly. There's no,
That's amazing. So you can use these approximations of, say, root 2 or pi or whatever, and make them fit exactly within these other numbers, so that you're dealing with integers. And 28 and 27 are both numbers that are associated with the moon, which is really interesting.
And then we talk about them using the mile, because they absolutely were using the mile. There's absolutely no doubt about this. There's so much historical evidence. And I can take you through the acre as a unit, which was used by the Egyptians, but in a different form. But I can't do that now. The mile is 5280 feet, and the mile can represent a circle. So if you divide it by 360, what do you get? Putting you on the spot here. Can you work it out?
No.
I got to put you on the spot, Melissa. Sorry.
Okay. Oh my God, it's 14.6666. How did I not get that?
See? It's there, and that's why the mile is an eclipse prediction system. Obviously, an eclipse prediction system. And what do you do to get the Saros from that number? You just multiply it by 449. And is 449 designed into the Giza pyramid? Of course it is. And is 449 designed into Stonehenge? Of course it is.
Okay, so 6585.3333.
Yeah.
That's the Saros in days, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
From the NASA website,
Yeah.
I mean, we're not making this stuff up.
Yeah.
So that's why I wrote my book, Stonehenge the Eclipse, because I found that unit. I wrote that book before I had any inclination that I was going to be looking at the Giza pyramid. I wrote that book in isolation based on the measurements that Thom gives at Stonehenge. And I found that unit. And now that unit has got something really spiritually important about it. And when you use pi as 22/7, because Professor Thom said that base 10 was, what did he say? It's universally sacred. He said base 10 in ancient times was universally sacred. So I thought, that's a really funny thing for him to say. And that's the only time throughout all his books that he says anything like that, just one line. And that's very typical of Thom. He didn't want to talk about that, but he wanted to let you know that he understood.
As a hint.
As a hint. So I looked at this 14.66. I divided it by 22 over 7, and you get 4.666. So you take 14.666 from 46
and add it,
and you get 10.
Yeah.
And if you divide that number into the circumference, you get 1.466, and that is inherent in every 22 over 7 circle. And that's the eclipse unit, is in 22 over 7. And the Great Pyramid is designed against 44 over 7 because the height of the pyramid is a radius, represents a radius. So instead of using 22 over 7, you've got to use 44 over 7.
Mm-hmm. There's some complicated geometry going on here. So you've got circles, you've got various approximations of pi.
Yeah.
And circles obviously really foundational.
Yeah. Yeah. I was quite excited what Charles said to me, because he said yesterday that he's squaring the circle. And he's got all the maths to prove it. So I'll be interested to go through that with him when I've got some time. That's
great. So squaring the circle being the ancient riddle, if you like, of how to reconcile the pi, which is irrational when it's not when it's applied, but as a concept, it's irrational, and how to reconcile that with a square which has 4 sides of whatever integer value, and then the circumference of a circle, and to make them fit either by area or by circumference and perimeter. So this is a really interesting thing. So and in fact, you need to look at the square root of pi for circling the square, which is even more complicated.
Well, who we get the square root of pi off? It's who is it? The metrologist that's always telling us about.
Oh, it's Wim or Vim.
Vim.
Yeah.
Vim. Yeah. Hello, Vim. If you're watching, hello, Vim.
Yeah,
Vim.
That's his royal Cubit, which is based on that concept.
Vim's done some great work on the layout of the plateau. I mean, he's put so much time and effort into
it. Oh, yeah.
And he's got his own theory, and he's sticking to it, and he's not wavering. And I don't blame him, because it's a really good theory. And part of his theory is that the square root of pi is used in the design of the pyramid. Now, I'm looking at Egyptian numbers. So Egyptian pi is 256 divided by 81. And that version of pi, although it's a lot larger than we would expect nowadays, that version of pi is pi for a reason, and it's because it's got a square root. And the square root is 16 over 9. That's the square root of Egyptian pi. And
that's brilliantly. And then you have 16, which is a square.
And if you look at that, it's 1.7777 recurring. 16 divided by 9. So if you multiply that by 1,000, you get 1777.777. And if you divide that by 100 and multiply it by 99, you get 1760, which is the number of cubits in the Royal Cube in the Giza Pyramid. So it's connected. And what Vim's found, he's using real pi and taking the square root of real pi.
Which I think is great, personally, because I don't think that you should put any limits on what Egyptians used. It's definitely possible.
Yeah, it is. It is, and I've changed my tack on that. I was absolutely anti it at one time, but I think having looked at Vim's work and the results that you get, it's hardly believable, but it works.
Absolutely, and the thing is, there's a case for using an approximation for pi because it's all applied, which is really close to the one that we have on our calculator. I'm reaching for my phone, which is my calculator. And then there's a case for these other approximations which you're using that are particular fractions that can be used then to produce these numbers. So you talked about 256 over 80, what did you say, 89? No, I got that wrong.
Over 81.
81. Or obviously 22 over 7, 25 over 8, whatever. But they have their role to play as well. And I don't think there's a case of one being right and all the others being wrong.
I think they can all apply. The other version of pi that is very relevant, that we'll be needing today when we go through this pyramid design, is 864 divided by 275. And what that is time, 864, which is a tenth of a day, divided by 275, which is the imperial system. 275 is such an important number, and it's between 27 and 28.
That's true.
There's the connection, you see. It's the average, 27 and 28. And we've just seen now the eclipse unit divided by 28 multiplied by 27 gives √2, 10 √2. And 10 √2 is the Harrison-Stockdale megalithic foot in inches, if you're watching. If they're watching.
Yeah. I like that particular version of pi because it connects really easily to phi squared.
Yes.
No, because it's 3.18181818.
Yeah.
And it connects very easily then to 2.6181818.
Yeah. Well, we know at the Giza Great Pyramid, phi has been discovered in the King's Chamber by Jim Allison.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done some great work as well. I've never really talked to Jim. I've never been on the same site, really. I was on the Graham Hancock site for a while, but I used to read his work, and I understand it all now, but I didn't then. But I was learning then.
I learned so much from Jim and Stephen because they worked together a lot on GHMB.
Well, at that particular time, I was looking at Jim Wakefield's work, and Jim was coming out with some tremendous stuff. And Jim was looking at the astronomical aspects of stuff. He's been on your channel, hasn't he? He's been interviewed by you.
Jim, Wakefield, yeah. I call him Jim W as opposed to Jim Allison.
Yeah, Jim W, yeah. And he was giving me this royal cubit of 20.625 inches.
Yeah.
And then Stephen Dale was giving me this meter of 39.375 inches. And then Berriman's book drops on my carpet, and I open it up. It says the Egyptian royal cubit is 20.625 inches, and the meter is 39.375. And I went, oh no! So, yeah, they were both telling me that for a long time, and I was trying to make connections between. Yeah. And the connection between them is what I call the Giza Sphere. And the Giza Sphere is pi over 6. And this is the cubit that we get in with 52.36. It's pi.
Yeah. So this is pi divided by 6. So you have a meter, for example, for the diameter, and then the circumference is divided into 6 equal parts.
But that meter is determined as a Giza sphere. And a cubit is 100 Giza spheres. If we accept that this paper by what's he called?
Oh, Gary Osborne.
Yeah, Gary Osborne. If we accept Gary's work, then the 52.36 is 100 Giza spheres, because pi over 6 is a sphere inside a 1 inch square.
Yeah. But you're talking about volume, though. So you have volume on the one hand and you have linear lengths on the other, but you can reconcile because it's the same numbers, essentially, right?
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring Stephen into the conversation.
All right.
He just wrote something to me. I got in touch with him. So, excuse me. I put a link into the last paper, into the last discussion we had, and asked him what he thought of it. And he came back and he said it's a really nice discussion. He liked it. So I'm pleased about that. And then he started talking to me about units, and he called them trans-dimensional units. And I think that is such a great name for them that I'm going to stick with that from now on.
That's great, because you're not stuck to one particular dimension.
No, because you that describes them perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're not even talking about squares and cubes, you're talking about spheres as well, because we're looking at a spherical unit here now. Because everybody, any mathematician will tell you that pi over 6 is a sphere.
Mm-hmm.
But that's real pi over 6, but any pi over 6. And I think the cubits that the Egyptians were using were spherical, because the 20.625, that's derived from 22 over 7. So if you divide the 22 over 7, you get 22 over 42, 6. And that's very cool. If you multiply that by 100, so you've got 100 Giza spheres. And on my YouTube account, I've written a video called The Giza Sphere. And it's got this, I can't remember what, I've put a logo on it so that it stands out so people can notice, because I'm really pleased with it, because I thought there's something really incredible going on here with these qubits. It's like, and transdimensional units describes it. It's almost like the way that these people were thinking is almost completely different to the way that we think. Apart from the ones right at the top of the pile where you don't know what they're thinking about, because they're so amazing, aren't they? They're so far ahead of everything. But transdimensional units, so that when you see 52.36 as a qubit, it's just a straight line measure, but it's nothing like straight line measure. And then also Gary Osborne's interpretation of it, and all his interpretations, because he's put loads of interpretations, and I strongly recommend that paper to anyone interested in this stuff.
I remember from what you're saying, I remember a while back Manu Sefzadeh put a quotation from a hieroglyphic inscription, "Masterful is the qubit." And I keep coming back to that, because there are so many aspects of this qubit that you can develop, in terms of the numbers, in terms of the ratios, in terms of the fact that it's not necessarily just a linear value. There's so many things that you can think about, connected to the size of the Earth, to time cycles, to geometry.
Yeah, it's non-stop. And what I always think about, because when I went to Egypt, it's an absolute knockout when you see all the temples. And we're not seeing them the way they were, because the colours have all gone. They've been paint. You can see the paint. Some of the paint is still left. But if you imagine what it must have been like. I mean, at the end of a few days there, we were going up and down the Nile. And I said to my wife one night, I said, I've got sensory overload. I felt like I was seeing so much every day that it was too much.
Yeah, but you can't not see it when you're there. I mean, it's just an amazing trip to go on, not that I've actually been.
Yeah, and it's just fantastic that something, and the size of the temples as well make you feel like you're almost
a very small person. And that's just me. I'm used to that. I'm not the tallest. But yeah, that would be exacerbated, I'm sure, if I stood next to one of those temples.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So again, I've gone off. Well, I haven't gone off topic, but
it's great. Let's go back to the plan of the pyramids.
Yeah.
So we started with Jomard, and also we were going to talk about Jean-Michel. I'm making that he's French now. Jean-Michel and John Neal.
Yeah.
And Robin Heath.
Yeah, I'm going to Flinders Petrie, I think.
Petrie, oh my God, yeah.
Because I asked the question, are Flinders Petrie's measurements more accurate than Jomard's?
Yes, okay.
That was the question. And the AI came out with this. It said, Flinders Petrie measured the base of the Great Pyramid between 1880 and 1882. His measurements were significantly more accurate than those made by the French savants during Napoleon's expedition in 1798, and are still considered foundational data in Egyptology today.
Yeah.
And then it says comparison of measurements. French savants Date 1798, 693 feet for the base side. Flinders Petrie, 756.
A big difference.
Now, I don't think that's right, 693. I don't think
anything. To be fair, they cleared the sand, but could they have cleared enough?
No, they cleared it to the sockets. They made the sockets visible. But what I'm saying is, I think the savants measured the pavement level.
Could be.
I think they measured the pavement level, and they measured it at 91.6 meters, and that's where the meter comes from. 37.
1.6. Oh yeah, I see. Yeah.
I think that's what they measured, and they've got it absolutely spot on.
Oh, well, in that case, then yeah.
Dash measured, and Dash said he felt that the intention was 230.4 meters in the base. That was the intention.
Yeah, which is a really interesting result because this is a multiple of 12.
Yeah. Well, 20.736 divides into 230.4. So, you can't get away from base 12. It's in the design all the time.
I think this is not an argument necessarily for the meter in isolation, but it's a really good extra bit of argument to say that maybe the meter is relevant to Giza, because when you see that 230.4 meters can define the base side, it's kind of interesting.
I think that, like I said, I think Germain's work, it should be lauded from the hills. It's so fantastic what he got some intuition there to realize that it was going to be 30 arcseconds in the base. That's an amazing thing for him to have done. He must have been working on the circumference of the Earth. I know they were at that time.
Yeah, to determine the meter, sure.
He must have been familiar with all the relevant measures.
Yeah.
Made the connection.
Sure.
And thought, wow, this is something special, this pyramid, which we all know it is. And when you go and see it, even I can't imagine what it must have been like in its prime. And it's fantastic when you see it the way it is now. So 756 feet. That's Neil and Michell.
So this is also a really interesting number. This is a harmonic number.
Yeah, I can tell you about it. 756 feet. If you multiply that by 4, you get the length of the base in the perimeter of the base in feet, and it's 36288 inches. And 36288 is 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6 times 7 times 8 times 9 divided by 10.
Yeah,
that's what it.
So for me, that's a really, really good argument in favor of the inch. Again, which is probably even more controversial.
Amazing though, and when I first saw that, and it was years ago when I saw it, I just thought, I'm going to have to go down to the pub and have a couple of beers and a game of darts with the lads.
It is incredible, isn't it? 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6 times 7 times 8 times 9 divided by 10.
Yeah, how amazing is that?
That's the perimeter in inches.
And then the other one, if you multiply that by 100, if you multiply by 176 divided by 175, it gives a digit of 12 over 10 times 12 over 10 times 12 over 10. So it's sort of...
so like 17.
So you can see like 176 units in the base, because it's converting this 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 number into base 12 just by multiplying it by 175 over 176. And it was John Neal. It was John Neal that found that. And he found it because Babylonian pi, which is 100 over 32, when multiplied by 176 over 175, is 22 over 7.
Yeah.
And that's what John Neal found, which is a fantastic piece of deductive metrology.
Yeah. And then this can be combined then with multiplying by 4375 over 4374, then to find other approximations of pi, which is basically the Gemalis and Stephen Dale finding.
Well, that 4374, 4375, to be fair to Berriman, is in his book, and he actually describes how you can get 1.296 into a number that becomes infinite by multiplying it by 4375 over 4374. It becomes 1.296, 1296, 1296 or something, and it just continues.
That's K, isn't it? He calls that number K.
Yeah.
But it's got two versions of K, so that's the very, very long one.
The version is because of the what do you call it? The regisma ratio, is it?
I don't know if the G is hard or soft. Regisma, but that's what it's called. Yeah.
I didn't know whether it was a hard or soft, but But that's a musical ratio.
Yeah.
It's obvious from all this work we're doing that the Egyptians knew the Pythagorean theorem. It's an Egyptian thing. It's not. I mean, Pythagoras has got all the credit for it, and he's become absolutely internationally famous. But
I think very well recognised now that it's not just he wasn't the first. I think there were also signs that was there in ancient India, and I think China.
Yeah. So that's where we were, and it says Petrie's survey was the first truly scientific and accurate one conducted after clearing debris to expose the original casing points and corners. His results were highly precise, with a maximum difference between the side measurements of only 4.5 centimetres, about 1.75 inches.
Yeah.
And I put under that, this result does not sit well with the deduction of Jomard, so perhaps the estimate of 693 is incorrect. Where has it come from? Question mark. And then I've put 756 feet is 9072 inches, and this is 3 inches longer than Petrie's actual findings, but it does agree with the findings of Neil and Michell. This gives a Giza base of 36288 inches, and this is 1 times 2. I've gone through that.
Yeah.
And then Neil and Michell suggest that the royal cubit multiplied by 176 over 175 gives the geodetic cubit. So the base side length is 9123.84 inches, and this is 12 times 12 times 12 times 5.28. There's the mile again, and leads to an arcsecond of 101.376 feet, and an Earth circumference of 24883.2. And that's what we were talking about at Avebury.
Yeah.
In the previous talk that we had. So it's the same at Giza.
Yeah. So I think Petrie gives 9125 inches for that particular side length, but it's very close, and that's definitely also compatible, if not more so, with the arcsecond.
Well, this is the median circumference, so why wouldn't they have it in the design of the Giza pyramid?
Yeah.
But the problem is, it adds this strange extra dimension to the height of the pyramid, because Petrie was talking about the height from pavement level. We're going below pavement level. We're going down to the socket level.
Yeah.
And that's what John Neal said, that this measure is socket level measure. But Petrie goes further. He's added a few more inches onto the height when he gets down to socket level. So it's all very confusing. And I think it's all very confusing until you look at Piazzi-Smythe's book, and then it sort of clears itself up a bit. But I don't really want to go into that now. It's too complicated. So what I really want to talk about now is moving on from
Petrie.
From Petrie. We've just gone through Neil and Michell.
Yeah.
Going on to Genevier.
Yes. Okay.
Because Genevier finds that the base is 92160 centimeters, and so does when the meter is 39.375, and then he's got his 32000 Sumerian grains in 0.288 centimeters. So half a grain, which is 0.1488, gives 64,000, which is what I was talking about last time. This is an Egyptian solution, isn't it, to the base?
It sounds very plausible. You've got the number 64, which is 8 squared.
Yeah.
You've got these grains, which is these tiny, tiny units of measure that are documented. It's a great analysis.
But then we can go on to my favourite model of the Giza.
Go on then.
My favourite model of all time. Excuse me.
Keep us in suspense.
Robin Heath. I mean, Robin Heath has written some great stuff. I learned a lot from Robin. This is Robin's book.
Yeah.
And his model of the Giza Pyramid is in here somewhere. I probably can't find it. Oh, there it is.
That's a lovely little range of books as well.
It's just a brilliant book. Thank you for writing this, Robin, if you're watching. Because he's got the height of the pyramid it's the Earth and the moon on top of each other. Mm-hmm. And he's got the base of the pyramid as 7,920 miles. Well, obviously, it can't be in miles, can it? So what we're going to have to do with Robin's solution is put it into units, right?
Yeah.
So we're putting it into units. We're not using inches, miles, centimetres, shoes here, or any of those. We're just going to say units. And he's got the moon on top of the Earth, and the height of the pyramid is the radius of the Earth plus the radius of the moon. Well, in my solution, I'm doubling that for a very specific reason, which you'll come to in a minute. And he uses 44/7. So what we're going to do, I don't know if you've got your calculator later.
Yep.
The cubit in this solution is 36 units. The royal cubit, which is 6 times 6. Now, how juicy is that as a solution for a cubit? I mean, a cubit can be anything you want it to be. You can put any units you want into a cubit. It might be 20.612 inches or whatever, but you can divide it by 36 because that's what they used to do. They used to have a yard of 36 inches. So I'm putting 36 into my cubit, right? And the base is 1760 times 36. So what is that?
Wow, that gives us the number of inches in a mile, 63360.
How amazing is that for the solution to the base of the Giza Pyramid? And that is, I mean, Robin Heath, and Robin does half of that. So what's half of it? Because this is Larry Paul's favourite number.
Oh, yeah. This is the famous 3168 or 31680 in this case.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is the John Michell number.
If you double that back again.
Yeah, 63360.
If you double that back again and then multiply, divide it by 44 and multiply by 7.
Mm-hmm. Then we have 10080.
Yeah.
Which is a multiple of 12 and 9. Actually, no, not 12 and 9, 12 and 7. Sorry, 12 times 12 times 70.
That's the diameter of the Earth, 7920, plus the diameter of the Moon, 2160. This is all Robin Heath.
Yeah.
Robin Heath's work. And that number then, we've got 63360 in the base and 10080 in the height, using 44/7. And now we go to Milo Gardner.
Right.
Because Milo Gardner, as I've already said, is the best person to go to talk about Egyptian mathematics. There's nobody on the planet that knows more about it than he does. And he used to be an American code breaker for his day job. That was his job. He was a code breaker for the army.
Yeah.
So he knows a thing or two about breaking codes. Definitely broken the Egyptian mathematical code. And Milo explained to me that the Egyptians used the Hecat and the Rho And if you divided a number into the Hecate, like number 11, if you divided 11 into 64, the remainder was always stated in rho. And rho is the I of Horus fraction, the remaining I of Horus fraction. So it's 1 over 64. And what they did, because the remainders were so small, they increased the size of the rho to 5 over 320. And remainders were always stated in 5 over 320 or less. And they were always whole numbers. And that's what Milo says about Egyptian mathematics compared with the Babylonian. The Babylonian is not finite, but the Egyptian is. You always get finite numbers in the Egyptian mathematics. Always. And it's really amazing because if you use our modern day calculator, if you divide 11 into 64, you get a right load of gobbledygook, really. But if you do it using the Egyptian method, you know exactly what the remainder is as a fraction.
Fraction, yeah.
Why this was important to the Egyptians is when I first started work, I used to get involved in payroll occasionally. And you go onto the factory floor and talk to people and get to know them. And a lot of the workers used to say, "Oh, I don't know, you can do numbers. Really, numbers all day would drive me nuts." And they all say, "Oh, I'm no good at maths anyway. I could never do that." But if you make a mistake in their wages,
then they'll know. Yeah, then they'll be very keen.
They get it.
I would be
really funny. When you're involved in payroll, you only ever get people coming to tell you you've done it wrong. Right. So if you do it wrong the other way, they never tell you, but they always come and tell you if you get it wrong. But some of the people were amazing in the way they could work out whether the wage was right or not, knowing the pay rate and everything. They had to do loads of calculations. And yet these are people that were telling me all the time that they didn't like numbers and didn't want to work with numbers. They were better at doing it than I was. I was doing that payroll wrong and they were getting it right. Amazing. So yeah, there's it's inherent in all of us, this ability to calculate.
I guess so.
Yeah. So where am I now? Oh yeah, Milo. Right. Milo Gardner gave me a diameter required to calculate the Hecate using 44 over 7. He actually gave me this to calculate the rho, but I've doubled, and he used 22 over 7, but I've doubled it up to 44 because it'll produce 10 Hecate because one rho is 320, but it's 101.8181818181 recurring. That's the number that he's given me. So if we take Robin's height of the Great Pyramid and multiply it by 100 over 99, if you do that, 1008 times 100 over 99.
10,181.818181.
Yeah, 101.8181818181.
Yeah.
Now that is the solution to the design of the Giza pyramid. So Robin's solution is in Imperial, and I've always suggested that it's a base 99 system. So if we multiply it by 100 over 99, we get this solution of Genevier.
Okay.
That's it. And that's like a combination of so many people's solutions all resolve into this Genevier solution. But I think Robin Heath's solution is the best. And because it resolves to Genevier's solution, it's going back to Neil and Michell because Genevier reconciles to Neil and Michell. And I've got a list of people here who go for Neil and Michell. So it's not like it's an isolated number of researchers. There's a lot of researchers.
There's a lot of people, yeah.
There's Stephen Dale, Gary Osborne, Charles Magner, David Genevier, Quentin Laplace, John Michell, John Neal, Dennis Payne, Harry Sivertson, and even Parker Pearson and Chamberlain. can be reconciled into this as well. So, and Robin Heath, and then there's me and you. That's a lot of people coming up with the same solutions for the design of the Giza pyramid. And the design is so incredibly complex, and it's covering irrational numbers. It's covering spheres, cubes, squares, straight lines. It's covering astronomical
cycles.
So I can show you how to find the eclipse in the Giza pyramid. It's easy because the height of the pyramid can be divided by 450 and multiplied by 499. That's that change in the number of units in the eclipse, and you'll find the eclipse cubit in the design of this pyramid. So that's how you find it. I'm not going to go into the mathematics of it; it's too complex. But
that's a very nice connection to the moon, anyway.
Yeah. So this pyramid design is it's full of transdimensional units, and basically that's really what I wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, it's amazing how they mesh and how there's a sense that they converge into this solution, as you're saying, which brings in many people's work. Not that they necessarily agree with the final results, because there's a tendency amongst metrologists not to agree. But it's great. It's a fact that these numbers do reconcile, and you've done it. You've shown how they work, how they fit in together.
Yeah. What pleases me is that I've not used my own theory. I've used everybody else's theory, and then the final clincher, if we need one, is Quentin Laplace, his megalithic yard, which I'm really excited about. When I saw it, I was very excited, because I knew what it was. And it's 82.944 centimetres. And if we divide a megalithic yard by 1.54, we get the Royal Cubit from Hugh Franklin's work. And if you divide 82.944 by 1.584, you get David Genevier's Royal Cubit. So there are two Frenchmen there. Whose work is colliding, and David Genevier's work is colliding with Neil and Michell, and it's like metrological supernova, I'd say.
I guess so. So just to be clear, so that the conversion from Quentin's megalithic yard into inches, the one that works best is via this 39.375 inch meter, so that you get whole numbers, and we're kind of working with these numbers that divide into each other, and 12s and 7s and everything.
And then one final connection to get down to Thom's megalithic yard is take this unit, that this cubit that's being used by Genevier. If you convert that to imperial and then divide it by 1701 times 1700, you get the cubit that, when multiplied by 1.584, gives 32.64.
So this is another version of the megalithic yard. So these things make me sometimes feel like I don't understand, because one minute the megalithic yard is 32.64, and the next it's slightly different to accommodate the 39.375 meter. So as
if you talk to David Genevier, he'll tell you that what is important are the ratios. Yeah. Well, David might say that there's only one Royal Cubit and it's 52.3636, but there isn't, because we've worked out the cubic Royal Cubit, and it's three different cubits, and they're all calculated the same way, and it's three different versions of pi, and pi cubed is 31 0.104, and that's 1.296 Berriman's K times 24.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pi cubed.
Yeah. So this is
transdimensional pi unit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the approximations that are used are there in order to preserve whatever ratios are being used.
Yeah.
But then we have, for example, the difference between, you said about that particular megalithic yard with the other one that corresponds to 2.716 feet as opposed to 2.72.
Well,
and also the digit, you can have 0.729 or 0.729166666.
Yeah. So why did Berriman discover 3 different digits? Mm-hmm. One's 4400 divided by 6,000. One's 4375 divided by 6,000, and one's 4374 divided by 6,000. Well, what happens between 4375 divided by 6,000 and 4400 divided by 6,000? Where are all the other digits between there? And that is the scale. Top of the scale is 4400 divided by 6,000, which is 1760 divided by 24,000, but divided by 2,400. Are you with me?
Yep.
And that's the 1760 cubits in the Giza base.
Yeah.
And what I showed to Hugh Franklin that let me use his stuff to write the book, I showed him that there was another hidden code in the number of units in the Giza base. Because what Hugh discovered, which is another fantastic contribution that he's made to historical metrology, he discovered that there were 1,111.11111 megalithic yards in the Giza base. Mm. And if you divide 1760 by that, you get 1.584. And that's what I showed him. I said, this discovery is almost as important as what you've discovered, because he'd hit Petrie's measure in the base when his megalithic yard. I said, this is something you've not realised, Hugh, and it needs writing about. And I know, I understand it, and you've got to let me use your stuff to write a book. And he said, yeah, okay, I agree. That's why he agreed. And now we find that we can prove David Kenworthy to Quentin Laplace by using 1.584. It's not an argument, which means that David Kenworthy's work's okay, and it means that Quentin Laplace's work's okay. And Michell's work's okay, because they're all interlocked. Mm-hmm. So it's just a question of all these people starting to get on the same page and work together to sort of push this metrology more into the public spotlight, because it's so important. Yeah.
We talked about the moon. What about other astronomical cycles? Is that something that's important, do you think? Or maybe it takes second stage at this stage?
Well, when I demonstrated that the cubic royal cubit can be used to predict eclipses, I tapped into this work of a researcher called Andy Cowlins, and he's deciphered the Turin Papyrus. And the Turin Papyrus is loads of astronomical cycles, and he's an Egyptologist, and he's deciphered all of them. It's a colossal piece of work. And he found the Saros, and he found the Metonic cycle, and he found loads of other cycles, and he found base 99, he found other units, all that can be recognised once you get into all this stuff.
Yeah.
So the Turin Papyrus is where you go to find out how smart the Egyptian scribes were. And we're only just scratching the surface. This is the tip of the iceberg, what we're finding. I think when you think how long their society was stable for, I mean, it was thousands of years that it was stable. And the pharaoh had the responsibility to make sure all these people were fed. So all these mathematical ratios and everything all come from that. If you've got,
or vice versa, they were able to feed them because they had the maths, but either way, they work together.
But if you've got 6,000 people living in a town, you've got to figure out how big the granaries are going to be, aren't you, to make sure that enough is put in the granaries for those people to eat all year. And the payment to the workers was in hectares. So you get, at the end of the week, they'll say, oh, you've earned 140 hectares, and that's grain. So you'd take that grain and it was yours, and you'd probably take a local baker to have it ground and then turned into bread, and then later on in the day or the day after, you'd go and pick your bread up for the week.
Right, yeah.
The way it would work.
Yeah.
And I've seen something similar in Portugal. When I lived in Portugal, people have their olive trees in their gardens, and at the end of the year, in the end of September, October, they put these sheets down under the trees and shake the trees, and all the olives fall, and they take them down to have them crushed in the olive mill, and what they get back is half of what they've produced, olive oil.
Right.
So that you get will see you through the year.
But as you say, if you have this mathematical ability to pay your workers, to organize food supplies, to build monuments, it implies that there is already a really strong mathematical ability. And I think it implies writing. I think it implies a lot of things, but it implies maths. And I watched an interview recently on the Lex Friedman show, and the guest was the really famous Sumerian researcher, the curator of the British Museum, Irving Finkel. And he said something that was really, really, really interesting. He said that from a raindrop, you can infer the Niagara Falls exist. And I think you have to accept that going back to these remote times, even if you don't find signs of actual written maths tablets which contain whatever value for pi they were using or whatever, going back really, really far in time, it doesn't mean they didn't have those things, because we can infer from the way they lived and the things that they built that they had them. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I watched a programme last week about Skara Brae in the Orkneys.
Yeah.
And the archaeologists have done a fantastic job there. I went up a couple of years ago with my wife to have a look, and went to Skara Brae and we visited all the monuments. And Skara Brae was so impressive. I mean, the way that they've got it in the exhibition is superb, and the excavations that have been done there. And what it's got these houses right overlooking the sea, built of stone, and the stonework that they've used is really impressive. It's not like just thrown up one on top. They've cut the stones to size, and they've made lintels. They've even made a Welsh dresser out of stone in one of the rooms.
Yeah.
They've got toilets in the houses, and before they built the houses, they put a massive underground drainage system that takes all the waste out into the sea.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're not talking about people that can't do anything that we can't do. And if you look at Maze Howe, if you look at the stonework in Maze Howe, which is 6,000 years old, I think, it's unbelievable. You cannot believe. And it's got 2 megaliths inside. And they've found that these megaliths, which are huge stones, don't support the structure at all. They're just there as visuals.
Crazy.
So I would think that they were probably there before they built Maze Howe. They were 2 standing stones, and they probably thought that Maze Howe was so important as a site.
They expanded.
It had to be sort of turned into a church. And when you go into it, it's like you're almost going into a modern building, you know, and it's a low corridor that you go into, then you get into this. It's like a cathedral when you come into it. It's really impressive.
I must visit. Well, listen, one last question to finish off for today. Of all the surveys of the Great Pyramid that have been done, so going back as many centuries as you like, who do you think did the best?
Well, it has to be Petrie, but I'm tending towards Glenn Dash, because he's found this 921.6, and to find that from the site. And also, if you look at the Glendash survey, I think he puts the centre of the pyramid as the centre of his survey. Mm-hmm. Out from that, and you can see from that the unit that's being used, and it's amazing the way. I think that's the most comprehensive survey of the area of the pyramid. I think Petrie's work on the Great Pyramid is probably what we all tend to as researchers, and certainly Hugh Franklin did. But I think Glendash, I think he might just take it for me, because he's using the most up-to-date techniques, isn't he?
But with less precision. He's going with 10 centimeters either way. So for me, I'm going with Petrie.
Yeah, well, the reason I like Dash is because he's found this 9216, and I think
fair enough. To be honest, I think everyone has something to contribute.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But Paul doesn't get much of a mention, does he? And he did a good survey as well, didn't he?
That's true. Okay, well, listen, let's leave it there for today. That was fantastic.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I hope that was informative for people watching to see exactly what the processes are and how the various people interpreting these great big piles of stones are working and how they relate to each other and what they're looking at and the thinking, and also finding this common ground. So multiples of 12 and these numbers that keep coming up again and again, no matter what the measure. And I love this term then that Stephen has given you. So the transdimensional.
Yeah, it's a great number. It's a great.
We can leave it at that then with this idea of the transdimensional.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Melissa.
Thank you so much, David.